Okay, so hope you all see my screen. Okay, so today's topic is the four parts of yoga. So before we go into the topic for today's class, we'll just go a review of what we did last class. So the Vedas, or we did the Vedas, are four. They are Rig Veda, Yajur, Sama, and Atharva. Veda means knowledge, and Upavedas are four: Ayurveda, Dhanurveda, Gandharva Veda, and Arthashastra. And each Veda consists of four parts: Samhita, Brahmana, Aranyaka, Upanishads, and Vedanta. That is, Upanishads are Vedanta. And six Vedangas. They are Siksha, Vyakarana, Chandas, Nirukta, Jyotisham, and Kalpa. And the Prasthana Traya, they are Shruti, Smriti, and Nyaya Prasthana. And the four Mahavakyas are Prajnanam Brahma, Tattvamasi, Ayam Atma Brahma, Aham Brahmasmi. And the Shad Darshanas, the six orthodox schools, they are Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, Mimamsa, and Vedanta. And the evolutes of Prakriti, according to Sankhya schools, are Purusha. From Purusha is Prakriti. And Prakriti have three Mahagunas. They are Tamas, Rajas, and Sattva. From there arises the Mahat, the Buddhi. And from that comes Ahankara. And from Ahankara comes Manas. And from that, the 20 further elements. They are five Jnana Indriyas and sensory organs, or five Karma Indriyas or organs of action, and five Tanmatras or senses, and five Mahabhutas or the building blocks of the nature. And we did go over the other philosophies as well, the Charvaka, Buddhism, and Jainism. So now we will move on to the today's topic is four parts of yoga. So it says four parts of yoga. So what when there is a path, there should be a destination. So what's the destination? What is this path for? So to understand this better, we will first see the human goals. I mean, human goals of life. So they are called Chaturvida Purusharthas. That is the four aims of human life. That's what they are called, the human goals. They are Artha, Kama, Dharma, and Moksha. So first, that doesn't mean this is on the ladder, but I'll just go one by one. So Artha is those called economic values and the wealth. For example, so Artha means a wealth or things related to earning money. So this does not mean that the Hinduism advocates the acquisition of wealth only, but Hinduism understands the importance of money in person's life. So to live happily, definitely we all as a common person, you need money. So, but this money should be acquired by the honest methods only. So, if there is a clash between dharma and artha, obviously dharma should be given more priority than artha. So, the next is kama. Kama in the broader sense means desire. So, both Hinduism and Buddhism consider the desire, the kama, the pleasure as a root of human suffering. So, one should definitely sincerely observe dharma for even for kama, acquiring desire also. So then we move on to the dharma. So dharma is a righteousness or the duty. So a person is born on this earth to fulfill certain duties. So the soul houses itself into the physical body, which is most suited for performing these duties. The work that a person needs to do, which may be tied to their body, family, or commitments, among others, can be the dharma of that person. For example, dharma is difficult to translate into English, but can be roughly explained as the rightful duty of a person. So this is a true calling of a person when they are born, what they are born for to do. So example of a person's dharma may be their professional or family roles such as doctor, teacher, writer, warrior, priest, parent, whatever it is. So their dharma depends upon their roles they play. Sometimes a person's dharma is decided by their birth, but this is not necessarily determinative. See, a person's dharma can be a combination of things, and as a person progresses through life, different stages of life may call for different dharmas or rightful persons. We will just go over the different stages of life in the next slide. And the next is moksha, the fourth stages of life. So after having all the experience of this world, say artha, kama, and dharma, human have to strive for liberation. So fixing dharma as a basis. So if one has achieved the first three purusharthas, there is artha, kama, and dharma, which obviously the dharma is the base for everything. So gradually a time appears when one surpasses all these. So if artha and kama are based on dharma, then attaining the final moksha will be easier. So these four aims, the purusharthas, are incomparable to each other. So each of them was its own importance. Each helps other to reach the final destination. They are like the legs of the chair. All are equally important for the existence of the chair. So the next slides tells you the 4 stages of human life. So dharma will be obviously the basics for all of them. So the each stages of the life, the dharma varies for each person. So the first is brahmachari, that is a student life. Obviously, when the student's life is age, it depends nowadays, but there is a category of for the age also. So, but I'm not going to those details. So the brahmachari is a student life. So it's a personal self-restraint, study, so guru seva. So those will be the dharma for the brahmachari. And then we'll move on to the grihastha. Those are householder stage. And where for these, there's a social duties without attachment and householder duties. Those comes under grihastha. And then move on to the vanaprastha. This is the hermit stage, where detached from emotional contacts and unite mind with universal relationships. So this is from the vanaprastha. And the next stage is sannyasi. So mind is centered in the universal absolute. This is a renowned stage. For each stage, the dharma differs. For example, we'll move on to the previous slide. For that, artha, kama, dharma, and moksha is there, right? For student life, artha, dharma, and moksha. So they skip kama. For grihastha, so all 4 will be there: artha, kama, dharma, and moksha. On for vanaprastha, only dharma and moksha. And even for sannyasi, it's only dharma and moksha. So that's why those differs in each stages of life. So since we understand the stages and the goal of human life, we will see how to achieve them. So now we'll move on to the yoga, the definition of yoga first, before move on to the 4 parts of yoga. So yoga literally means union. So yoga is derived from the Sanskrit word yuj, means to join. That is individuality merging with the totality. That is a supreme consciousness. So individual consciousness merging with the totality of supreme consciousness. And it works on all aspects of personality, like physical, mental, intellectual, and spiritual. And these are the definitions from uh, different versions of yoga. So Patanjali Yoga Sutra, Patanjali says, Yogaha Chitta Vritti Nirodha. That is, yoga is a process of gaining control over the mind. So what this literally means is a process of controlling over the mind. Means chitta is mind. We saw this in the Sankhya definition. And vrittis or the fluctuation that happens on the mind. And nirodha is a cessation or the stoppage. So if you stop the fluctuations in your mind, that is become a yoga. So you take control of your mind. And now yoga vashishta. Manaha prashamana upayaha yoga iti abhidiyate. So yoga is a skillful technique to calm down the mind. And now we move on to the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita, they say, Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. So established in yoga, one remains even-minded in success and failures. So evenness is verily yoga. So it means just remaining calm and steady in all circumstances is what yoga is. And again, Bhagavad Gita, it says, yoga karmashu kaushalam. So yoga is a skillful action. So when you're doing something, your heart and soul and physically, mentally, intellectually, spiritually doing something, mindfully becomes a yoga. For example, if you sing or cook, it doesn't matter what you do, dance, yoga, whatever you do, if you do it full-heartedly, physically, mentally, intellectually, everything, put all 4 into what you are doing, that becomes a yoga. So this is just a definition. So since we know what's the goal of human life, and we will see how to achieve that, reach there. So even though the destination is the same, there are 4 paths. You can be reached in 4 paths. So we can choose any one path exclusively depending upon our personality. So the 4 paths are Karma Yoga, the path of action; Bhakti Yoga, path of devotion; Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge; Raja Yoga, the path of discipline. So we'll go over these in detail, but just before we move on to the next slide. So Karma Yoga, there are 4 streams of yoga which lead to the ultimate goal of the self-realization. So the Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga is the path of action, as we saw there in the previous slide. It is the path of dexterity in action. That is, the path of work involves doing actions without result orientation and without the attitude of I am the doer and for loka sangraha, that is welfare of all. So that becomes a karma yoga. Now, bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga says that control of emotions is the key in the path of worship. So bhakti is prema towards divinity with total surrender. Is that bhakti means love towards God? We will go over those when we go detail into bhakti yoga. Jnana yoga. Jnana yoga is the path of knowledge. So ability to distinguish between the permanent and impermanent. Intellectual sharpness is imminent. So your powerful intellect is necessary to guide and control the mind. And Raja Yoga. Culturing of mind is the key to success in all the endeavors of life. The yoga of mind culture and a powerful willpower gives a practical and easy approach to reach the higher state of consciousness. It is based on Ashtanga Yoga of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. So it gives a comprehensive and systematic approach for developing the mind. So depending upon our personality, so either we can choose Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, or Raja Yoga, which we can be easy for us to attain the destination. So now we'll move on to Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga is a path to reach moksha, that is spiritual liberation through work. Say somebody is really active, so their mind is always, they want to do something in action. So probably they prefer reaching the destination through work. So Karma Yoga is the yoga of action or work. Specifically, Karma Yoga is a path of dedicated work, renouncing the results of our actions as spiritual offering rather than holding the results for ourselves. So it's about purifying our heart by learning to act selflessly in service to others. Through Karma Yoga, we learn kindness and compassion without an expectation of gain. So this helps us to step away from our ego, freeing us to move one step further on the path of enlightenment. This for a simple thing. So for a grihastha, probably we all are doing as a karma yoga. If you are a parent, obviously you do some certain works without any expectation. As a mother, you do certain things. As a husband, you do certain things. As a wife, you do certain. You don't expect anything, So certain things can be done in without any expectations. Those becomes a karma yoga. But when you do it for a family, it is for your family. So when you expand that karma yoga to the entire people around, then it becomes a karma yoga. So we will see that ladder, the next slide. So karma means action. So refers to the law of cause and effect, that is action and their consequences. There is a karma for another, there is another meaning for karma as well in Sanskrit. So we will do that. We will go over that also. Hindus believe this is a law of the universe, just like the law of gravity. So we always talk about when there is something happen, we'll say it's because of karma, our karma, previous karma, and all those things. So we'll see, go over what is it. So the law, every single action has an effect or something else. Sorry, it should be effect. So karma decides where you come back and what you come back as. And if your actions are good, you will get a good rebirth, pleasant circumstances. If they are bad, you will get bad. So this is just a simple, what is a law, a karma law is. And there are three types of karma. They are sanchita karma, agami karma, and prarabdha karma. So these three are the main karmas that we are going to look into it. So the karma theory is this. So whatever you do, the actions have a effect on something. So if you do good, you get good. If you do bad, you get bad. As simple as that. So this is the karma cycle. So this looks pretty complicated, but we will go one by one so you will understand it better. So first we will move on to, okay, so first we will see this first. See Sanchita Karma, Agami Karma, and Prarabdha Karma. So first you need to know what these three are in detail before we move on to the next slides. Sanchita Karma is the vast store of accumulated actions done in the past, the fruits of which have not yet been reaped. That is, this is our bank account balance that's saved in your accumulated for, these are the fruits, that's the Papa and Punya account. So this will be saved as Sanchita Karma. So this is not reaped yet. I mean, you will still have to use it. It's in your account. It had to be used. It's called Sanchita Karma. And Agami Karma, the action that will be done by the individual in the future. The what we are doing now, the actions that we are going to do now, from tomorrow, day after, whatever we are doing now, it will be accumulated as a Agami Karma. That's your future credit and debit. And Prarabdha Karma, so the action that has begun to fructify, the fruit of which is being reaped in this life. So this life karma is called as a Prarabdha Karma. So our present life depends on this karma. So the Prarabdha Karma will decide what we have to go through in this life period, what our birth has to be, whom to be born, how long we will live, whether you will be rich, poor, all these depends on the Prarabdha Karma for this lifetime. So since we had a basic understanding of these three, so probably we'll understand this cycle better. So now we will see the cycle, how the karma cycle works. So even though the very objective of the birth is to exhaust the past karmas, we end up doing new karmas. So thereby creating a karma cycle. Obviously, this is a cycle. It never ends. It does end, but it's always in a cycle. So how to come out of this cycle, we'll just see. So from the standpoint of the current birth, so where we are here is here. Okay, so this is our current birth. So the past deeds, prarabdha karma, determine the environment responsible for the current experience in the world. So our present birth depends on our past deeds, prarabdha karma. So this is where we are living our experience in the world, and this depends on the past deeds. So the experience creates the vasanas, which are recorded versions of the experience and the emotions. And they influence the responses to the experience. For example, when we experience something, obviously we respond for that. So thus responses will also go back as a papa and punya, and that go back to the agami karma. I'm sorry, okay. So these responses will be recorded, and then these papa and punya again go back to your future karma. That's an agami karma. These experiences that we go through now depends on our vasanas too. That means our previous birth have the recordings of experience, emotions by mind. So these will influence our responses that we respond now. So for example, for the same situation, two persons react very differently. For say if one fell down, he will have a very sensitive for, I don't know what to give an example for, he is very scared of water, or some doesn't scared of water, or something like that. So these depends on the vasanas, the previous experiences. Those responses will be depend upon the vasanas. So then we will move on to the responses create the new karma. This is called agami karma. So probably with the understanding of example, you will understand it better. We'll say our Sanchita Karma is our bank account. So this is the account. Okay. So the bank account has Papa and Punya. So this is our bank account. So this is our Punya and Papa as our credit and debit. So we are planning on a vacation. So for example, okay. So that is a vacation is this birth. So we are planning as a vacation. There is birth. This depends on your karma. So your bank account. So this will depend on our bank balance. If we have a good punya account, our vacation will be in a Hawaii beach. And if not, our vacation will be in Marina Beach. So just kidding. So it's just basically to understand how our prarabdha karma works. So present birth depends upon our sanchita karma that we have accredited. And so obviously what we do now will also be recorded in the agami karma. So we still accumulate our papa and punya. So our present papa and punya will get accumulated in agami karma. So once our account become nil, then we will go out to moksha. So if you don't get, so since the agami karma accumulates as nishida karma, prarashita karma and kamya karma, then again the papa cycle continues. If you go here and then if you do any karma of these three, then again the papa and punya accounts in the sanchita karma, again the birth, and then the experience responses again. So the cycle continues. How to come out of the cycle? Once the karma becomes as a nishkamya karma, you come out of this and you get to moksha. But we will see what is the nishida karma, prayachita karma and kamya karma, and then we'll come back to this once again. So the karmas we can be classified as nishchita karma, prayachita karma, kamya karma and nishkamya karma. Nishchita karma is those that are prohibited by Shastras and to be avoided totally. So there are some things that you say completely no. So for example, killing, I'm just giving just an example. So those are completely Shastra says no. So if you do any kind of those kind of karma, that becomes a Nishchita karma. And Prayachitta karmas, those that are performed as a remedy as a past karmas. That is annual upakarmas, dosha nivriti karmas. Those are all the examples. So Prayachitta. So probably you might be heard this before we do any things, we do a Prayachitta karma. So those comes under Prayachitta karma. And Kamya karma, all those acts performed with a desire fall under this category. Shastra allowed Kamya karmas with moderation. So the desire can pertain to this world or other world. Act seeing higher worlds are also part of Kamya karmas. Kamya karmas is a doing something in return. For example, if you do pray to God saying, I'll do this if you do this. So something like that. You get, you expect something and do a karma for return. So that comes under Kamya karma. Nishkamya karma, the acts performed without a desire, falls under this category. So the acts are performed as prescribed in the Shastras without seeking the fruit of them, actually provide a higher benefit of Chitta Shuddhi. That becomes a purity of mind. So Nishkamya karmas become the karma yoga, and combined with self-knowledge becomes moksham or Jivan Mukti. So the karmas drop out as a duality is lost for a realized person. So the doer and the beneficiary do not exist and hence has nothing to be done. So karmas can never be given up. It has to be done either as duty till self-realization or as loka sangraha or social cause after the self-realization. So however, karmas drop out of the realized person with the destruction of their ego. So now you understand this better. So this is the Sanchita karma, then this is the present prarabdha karma that you are going through. Because of this experience, we accumulate the new karma, the agami karma. If this comes under these three categories, Nishchita karma, Prayachita karma, Kamya karma, then the cycle continues. Else, the Nishkamya karma come out of the cycle. So this is a karma cycle of Karma Yoga. So this is the ladder I was talking about. So work for self, serve self, achieve independence, good health, happiness, duty, mindness, food and shelter. If you take care of yourself, this is the first step. And work for family, serve family, build responsible children, values, education, provide security and good health. And this is the second ladder. Obviously, you're working for your family. So there is a little bit of next step. So probably we all are here. So some of them will be here as well. So work for the community, serve needy people around, look for happiness of community. So the next level of step is this. And work for everyone. Sarve jana sukhino bhavantu. Maintain equality. Treat all beings same as self. So selfless service. So nishkamya karma. Service without expectation. This will take you to the moksha, the final destination of the human life. So karma yoga's journey have seen. So we will move on to the next. Next is bhakti yoga. Bhakti, if you use your emotions and try to reach the ultimate, we call this as bhakti yoga. So that means the path of devotion. So if you are more emotional person, so if you're not very active or you're physically not fit, you can do anything towards bhakti yoga, karma yoga, then bhakti yoga is for the emotional people. So see the divine in everything. So when you practice bhakti, the yoga of devotion, it's often referred to as yoga of love. So union with God through devotion. So obviously we saw the yoga's definition as union. So when you offered everything with love to God, this becomes a devotion, the bhakti yoga. So bhakti yoga is the cultivation of unconditional spiritual love. So according to Narada Bhakti Sutra, bhakti is intense love for God. So the Bhakti Sutras explain that Bhakti Yoga is both the means and the end. The journey itself become a destination. So Apara Bhakti or lower Bhakti is the way to cultivate and deepen devotion. And Para Bhakti or higher Bhakti is union with the divine. And that's the ultimate goal. So a person who practices Bhakti Yoga, known as Bhakti Yogi, think of God in personal terms, such as father, mother, friend, or beloved. So when done correctly, this eventually leads one to see and love God in all forms, rather than just in one's chosen deity. So that's this is the classification of Papara Bhakti and Parabhakti. So this is the stages of love. So when you say love towards God, what kind of love? So there are stages in love as well. Kama, Prema, and Bhakti. So first level of gross love is Kama. Kama is gross form of love. So it's a desire or lust. Always includes the expectation of getting something in return. So that is Kama. So you give something and I give you something. So that kind of love is a Kama. And Prema, love without any expectation on something in return. That is, Prema is Kama. Obviously, there is Kama there. Kama plus Tyaga. That means you are not getting anything in return. So Prema brings great tripti, satisfaction, and the mind calms down, which is Santa Bhava. So this is the next step of love. So after Prema comes Bhakti. In Prema, we give material things, food, comforts, and wealth, and Tyaga of material possessions. If we give up our ego and our attachment, then we are in Bhakti state. So for example, in Prema, you give you give food or money to someone without any expectation, that comes under Prema too. But Bhakti is giving up your ego completely, not just a material possessions. If you give up your ego under attachment, then you are in Bhakti state. So Bhakti is Prema plus Charanagati or surrender or Prapati. So in Bhakti, one loses one's individuality and reaches the state of bliss, that is Sat Chit Ananda. So this is the stages of love. Now we will see the Navavida Bhakti, that is 9 forms of devotion. So they are Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, and Atma Nivedanam. So they are Shravanam, hearing the names and the glories of the Lord. Kirtanam, chanting his glories. Smaranam, remembering the God all the time. Padasevanam, serving the Lord's feet. Archanam, worshipping the Lord. Vandanam, offering obeisance unto the Lord. Dasyam, serving the Lord as his servant. Sakyam, developing friendship with the Lord. Atma Nivedanam, total surrender of oneself to the Lord. So these are the 9 forms of devotion. They are called Navavida Bhakti. And we will see the Pancha Bhavas, that is emotions of Bhakti. They are called Pancha Mahabhavas. Shanta Bhava, Vatsalya Bhava, Dasya Bhava, Sakya Bhava, and Madhurya Bhava. So what is this? Bhava means emotion. So even Bhakti is for emotional people. The emotions can be different too. So not all emotions are the same. So when say come to Shanta Bhava, steady, serene, and peaceful feeling without any perturbations. For example, Yudhishthira's and Santa Bhava. So for example is Yudhishthira. Vatsalya Bhava. So mother's love for child and child's love and surrender to its mother. So that's a Vatsalya Bhava. This example is Krishna and Yashoda. So those comes under Vatsalya Bhava, mother's and child's love. Dasya Bhava, surrendering like a servant to his master or Shishya to his guru. So these comes under Dasya Bhava. Example, Hanuman's Bhakti for Rama. This comes under Dasya Bhava. Sakya Bhava is a friendship. So your emotion is like a friendship. Sudama for Krishna. Those comes under Sakya Bhava. Madhurya Bhava is love of husband and wife or lovers. So example, Radha's Prema for Krishna or Meera's Prema for Krishna. These comes under Madhurya Bhava. So 5 Pancha Mahabhavas are Shanta Bhava, Vatsalya Bhava, Dasya Bhava, Sakya Bhava, and Madhurya Bhava. Now again, this ladder for Bhakti. God in temple. Going to temples, doing short prayers is the step 1. And God in home. Prayers, bhajans, shotras, fasting, etc. that you do at home. Obviously the next step. The next, God in myself. Realize God in self. Study or inner self meditation. And this becomes the 3rd step. And the 4th step, God is everywhere. See God in all beings, unattachment, sarve jana sukhino bhavantu. From here, it is easy to attain moksha. So this is the ladder for Bhakti Yoga. So now we will move on to Jnana Yoga. So Jnana Yoga is a yoga of knowledge. Not knowledge in the intellectual sense, but the knowledge of Brahman, world or cosmic soul. Brahman, I mean, this is what I'm talking about. Brahman is world or cosmic soul. It's not the Brahman, 3-headed Brahman. And Atman, soul or individual soul. and the realization of the unity. So this knowledge. And it's a spiritual practice that pursues knowledge with questions such as who am I, what is self-knowledge. If you have those kind of seeking, probably the Jnana Yoga will be your path. There are 4 prescribed steps in Jnana Yoga, known as Sadhana Chatushtaya, 4 pillars of knowledge and 3 practices. If you are curious to learn something, you are more intellectual person, then this path is for you. And Sadhana Chatushtaya, there are 4-fold spiritual practice for progress towards this goal. They are Viveka, Vairagya, and Shat Shampati and Mumukshutva. So first, Viveka is a discrimination between real and unreal. And Vairagya is a detachment, renunciation of the unreal. So once you know which is unreal, detach from that. And Shat Shampati is the 6 virtues, treasures of the self-control. These are the 6, we'll go over that. And Mumukshutva, to seek liberation. So longing for liberation. Obviously, you need to have a longing to get liberation. You need that as well. So these are the 4 goals, that is 4-fold spiritual practice called Sadhana Chatushtaya. Now we'll see the Shat Shampati. What are the 6 treasures or virtues? So they are Shama, Dhamma, Uparati, Titiksha, Shraddha and Samadhana. So we will see one by one. Shama is control of mind. Dhamma is control of senses. Uparati is completeness of self-withdrawal, no longer affected by any disturbances created by external objects. And Titiksha, endurance or forbearance to face all challenges in life. And Shraddha, faith. Faith in oneself and faith in God is one of the most important quality to gain the supreme knowledge. And Samadhana, tranquility or balance of mind, state of being calm, indifference towards good and bad, pleasure and pain, happy and sorrow. So Samadhana is the mental state of equilibrium. So these are the Shat Shampati. So when the purification of mind and mental disciplines are achieved, the longing for liberation dawns by itself. So after successfully practicing these 4 pillars, a practitioner is considered ready to begin the 3 core practices of Jnana Yoga according to Upanishad teaching. So they are the 3-fold process of sadhana or Shravana, Manana and Nididhyasana. Shravana is hearing or experiencing Vedantic philosophy through a guru or spiritual teacher, that is hearing from guru. Thereby achieving a deep understanding of the concepts of Atman and Brahman and the philosophy on non-dualism, and then develops faith in the scriptures. That comes under Shravana. And then Manana, thinking and reflecting on the teachings of non-duality in an attempt to understand them. So reflecting on what's heard from the teacher and removes doubt. That comes under Manana. Nididhyasana, constant and profound meditation, Brahman and the inner self in order to experience absolute truth. So meditating on what's heard from the teacher and complete assimilation of truth. So Shravana, Manana and Nididhyasana. These are the 3-fold process of sadhana. So obviously Jnana Yoga, you need more intellectual knowledge to understand or to go deep into this. So I just covered these steps. So now we will move on to the Raja Yoga. Raja Yoga is also known as Ashtanga Yoga, what we do now. So we'll see step by step. Raja Yoga means king. Raja means king or royal. That is referring to the status of Raja Yoga as a royal path or principal dom of yoga. So Raja Yoga is a path of self-discipline and practice. Since Raja Yoga involves all 3 dimensions of human existence, that is physical, mental and spiritual, it enables practitioners to achieve balance and harmony on all of these levels. Raja Yoga is also known as Ashtanga Yoga, that is 8-fold path to spiritual liberation. So we will see those 8-fold path. These are the 8-fold path. The Yoga Sutra is Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadau, Ashtau, Angani. So that's a sutra from Patanjali Yoga Sutra. So we'll see all the 8 limbs. Yama. Yama is the self-control or social harmony. Niyama, self-discipline. Niyama, discipline and personal purity. Asana, physical exercises and posture. Pranayama, breath exercise or control of prana. Pratyahara, withdrawal of the senses from external objects. Dharana is concentration. Dhyana is a meditation. Samadhi and complete realization and absorption. So the first five, yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, and pratyahara, these are called the external yoga. They are called externally, they are called bahirangas. And these three, the last, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi, they are called antaranga, that is internal. So these are the external first five, and the next three become internal. Now we will move on to yama. Again, yama is of five, includes 5-step process. Yama is ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, aparigraha, yamaha. So they are of 5. They are ahimsa, non-violence. We'll just a little bit go over what it is. So minimize the amount of harm you are causing to yourself and others in thought, word, and deed by becoming aware of the ways in which you may bring suffering to others. Patanjali Yoga Sutra says, when you are established in ahimsa, non-harming, others will stop harming you. So you will be a space for gentle love and kindness. So that is non-violence, ahimsa. And then that is next is satya, truthfulness. Truthfulness, before you speak, ask yourself, is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Satya includes right speech and truthful communication, as well as skillful listening. When approached with a piece of gossip, be a discerning listener. When truly practicing satya, one's words and deeds are all aligned in one another. Don't think one thing and then say something else. Being truthful does not necessarily mean being as blunt as possible. Practice ahimsa as well by telling the truth in the most skillful and constructive way possible. Next is asteya, non stealing. So do not take what doesn't belong to you. Do not take that which you haven't earned. This applies to material things as well as respecting others' time, energy, and hard work. If you're always showing up for appointment 10 minutes late, you are stealing another's valuable time. If you take credit for someone else's idea or hard work, that is not practicing asteya. Asteya also means balance between give and take. For some people, this may mean taking what is need more than often. So next is brahmacharya, moderation, pure way of life. So the yogic path discourages overindulgence in any things. So indulgence including food and sex. Obsession with these things may cause you lose touch with what is truly important in life. Brahmacharya is often described as moderation, specifically sensual. In classical yoga, brahmacharya refers specifically to sexual moderation. Never use sexuality to dominate or manipulate another being. Being faithful to your partner would be a form of brahmacharya. Don't be too hard on yourself. Everything in moderation comes under brahmacharya. And aparigraha, non-accumulation of possession. Develop sensitivity to what you really need. Don't take so much that others don't have. So don't be possessed by your possessions. As long as you are lusting after the next great thing, you will always have a sense of lack, which leads to suffering and a feeling of separation. If there is something you want, take the necessary step to make it happen. Let go of your attachment to the outcome. So basically these are the 5 that comes under yama. Then we'll move on to the niyama. Again, the niyama of discipline also have 5 steps. Saucha, santosha, tapaha, swadhyaya, ishvara pranidhanani niyamaha. Saucha, that is purity, cleanliness. Cleanliness and purity can be practiced on a number of different levels. A clean environment and living space, clear clutter, keep belongings organized, a clean body, clean diet, good hygiene, well kept appearance, a clean mind. Consider the amount and quality of information you are inputting on a daily basis and be selective about the books and magazines you read, how much time you spend online, on what television shows and movies you choose to consume, clean company, spend time with people who uplift your spirit and inspire to be your best, and set clear boundaries if you have toxic people in your life. So that comes under purity. Santosha is a contentment. Look to yourself and to your own innate goodness for happiness. That is the only place you will truly find. Santosha also means being present rather than wishing for things to be different in your life. Accept and appreciate the reality of what is. Do you really need things to be different to be happy? Choose to be happy now. Cultivate santosha by making gratitude a daily practice. Notice the moments you are happy, even if they seem to be few and far between. Keep a gratitude journal. Count your blessings. Remind yourself often, I have enough. I am enough. So that's a contentment. Happy with what you have. Tapa, self-discipline. Transform yourself in the fire of positive change. It refers to the discomfort that comes with breaking habitual thought and behavioral patterns to affect positive transformation in your life. If you have ever tried to break a bad habit, you will know that process is often accompanied by physical discomfort. Yes, you also recognize that the discomfort is a necessary step toward the change you are seeking. Having tapas is rolling out your yoga mat and doing your practice. Even you would rather stay home and watch TV and eat chips. So obviously, that comes under. So trying to change self-control, self-discipline is doesn't come easy. So it is a tapa. Next, swadhyaya, self-study. Be aware of your actions as they are happening. Reflect on them later. Use your reflection to make positive changes to your actions in the future. Taking time to reflect quietly on your day through journaling or contemplation in a wonder way to practice swadhyaya, a wonderful way. Studying of yoga text and scriptures is also said to be a form of swadhyaya as you are studying the highest self. So next comes the Ishvara Pranidhana, that is devotion to God. That comes and also becomes a surrender. Give your life force energy to something higher than yourself. This is devotion and surrender for the small self to the higher self. We practice Ishvara Pranidhana every time we dedicate or offer up our yoga practice to someone else. This has a powerful effect on your practice. It creates a new sense of purpose when your practice is infused with intention and energy. Ishvara Pranidhana also means letting go of doubt and making room for faith. So these five are niyamas. And asana, next step is the sutra for asana is Thira Sukham Asanam. The posture which is steady and comfortable is asana. That is, which is comfortable is asana. Steady at the same time comfortable. That what is asana is. Asana is which enables us to maintain the equanimity. When I say equanimity, say when you are happy, you are up, and when you are unhappy, you are so down. So your mind swings up and down. So you are too much excited to put yourself down. So this is called dvandva. That is the going up and down. So the duality. So asana helps you to maintain that equanimity. It is not just doing exercise, whichever posture brings you comfort and stability is what asana is. What is comfort is very different from people to people. So shorter your comfort zone, the more miserable you are. Your happiness depends on the extent of your comfort zone. So asana is something that depends on your comfort zone. If you're comfortable sitting on the chair, then that is your comfortable zone. If you have to squat on the floor, it is little different. Now, if you practice sitting on the floor, if you practice to bend your limbs, use every part of your body, then your comfort zone has increased. So next is pranayama. Pranayama is a practice of breath control. Prana is a vital force or energy. Yama means expansion, stretching, extending, control. You can say these are the definitions for yama. So practice of pranayama achieves a balance in activities of these pranas, which results in healthy body and mind. So pranayama is actually extending your breath, is what the exact meaning is, or controlling your breath. So a regular pranayama practice can stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system. Our breathing patterns are very closely linked to our emotional states. We breathe in a different way when we are angry, excited, tired, or nervous. So, however, using appropriate pranayama techniques, we can actually alter our physical and emotional state. And next is pratyahara. Prati is again or away. Ahara is food. Pratyahara literally means control of ahara or gaining mastery over external influences. It has been compared to a turtle withdrawing into its shell. So the turtle shell is the mind and the turtle limbs are the senses. The term is usually translated as withdrawal from the senses. So there are four main forms pratyahara. Indriya pratyahara is control of senses. Karma pratyahara, control of actions. Prana pratyahara, control of prana. And mano pratyahara, withdrawal of mind from senses. So each has its own special methods. So we saw yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. We are just going to do a gist of it. So these three come as we saw again in the antaranga, that is internal yoga. So the trinity of dharana, dhyana, samadhi is called samyama. So dharana is a concentration, the process of holding or fixing the attention of mind onto one object or place. It's called dhyana. Dhyana is a meditation, sustained concentration, whereby the attention continues to hold or repeat the same object or place, comes as dhyana. Samadhi is a deep absorption, where only the essence of the object, place, or point is held in forefront of the mind, as if the mind was devoid of even its own form. So these are the dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. We are going to see pranayama and these three in detail in later classes. So I'm just going to give you a gist of it. And these the review for today's class. That is, we saw four purusharthas, human goals, artha, kama, dharma, and moksha, and the four ashramas, stages of human life, brahmacharya, grihastha, manaprastha, and sannyasa, and four parts of yoga, karma, bhakti, jnana, and raja yoga. Since we are going to see details in Ashtanga, I'm just listed this Ashtanga as 8 limbs of yogas. Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. Yama is 5, Ahimsa, Satya, Ashtaya, Brahmacharya, and Aparigraha. Niyama, Shaucha, Santosha, Tapa, Swadhyaya, Ishvara, and Pranidhana. So these are the class topic for today. I think I rushed through. So if you have any questions, you can ask or wait, I'll open. Okay. Any questions that you have?